Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. My name is Chris Salem. Welcome to Business Influencers. If you are new to our show, you found us here at TALRadio, which is for Touch of Life Foundation. We also encourage you to check out many of the other great shows here on the TALRadio platform. Again, covering almost every topic that can cater to not only interest in business, but also in your personal endeavors as well. We are glad that you were here. We have been on the air now for over 3 years here at TALRadio. It is hard to believe, and it's thanks to you that this show continues to grow, and we are committed to raising your level of business and personal influence each day and each week when we have this show, as we bring on subject matter experts that are here to share from experience, allowing you to decide what that means to you to elevate your business and brand influence to the next level. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to rekindle old relationships. Now, again, this is not a regular social media platform. It is a paid membership program. But what it does, it takes out all the noise out of social media. So no more of those noisy notifications. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships on your time, sharing content that you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. And again, they offer a wide array of different services available both on a business and personal level, not available to the general public. Check them out and let them know Business Influencers sent you. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about today, build yourself, then build others. Yes. I always say here that if you're not, taking the time to better yourself, how can you be an example and be a resource to do for others? We have to be able, when the oxygen mask comes down, you got to put it on yourself before you put it on your child. A lot of times the instinct is to put it on the child, but how can we take care of someone if we're not taking care of ourselves? Well, we got the right person here today to talk about that. His name is Brian Brogen. Brian is a coach, trainer, and speaker with an emphasis on communication and team building. As a certified human behavior expert, Brian has a knack for developing teams and individuals both personally and professionally. He works with organizations and individuals, coaching and training using his experience, knowledge, tenacity, and the sense of humor. Brian is the founding author of Voices for Leadership, a collaboration of 74 diverse authors sounding their unique voice or on leadership principles, and the best-selling author of The 100-Hour Pilot, is a top 1% construction voice on LinkedIn, where he posts daily. Now, I can keep going on and on and on about Brian, but you're going to learn more about him here when he's sharing, and you'll get an opportunity to know how to connect with him also here later on the show. And without further ado, we welcome Brian Brogen to the show. Brian, how you doing today?
Chris, I am so excited to be here, and thanks for that great introduction to your audience. I'm hopeful that we can cover some ground here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Brian, as we talk about this topic of build yourself, then build others, as we, mentioned earlier, if you're not building yourself up, how can we be an example or resource for others? Can you talk about it from your perspective and, your experience and, how you have been helping others in organizations, why we have to take time to again, take care of ourselves before we can take care of others?
Well, Chris, you shared an example we all can recognize. That's that oxygen mask coming down on an airplane, and they encourage us to put our mask on first so that we can take care of others and not have that hypoxia that happens when you don't have oxygen. And so we can care for others because we've already cared for ourselves. And I've heard the acronym FLY, first lead yourself. So when we lead ourselves, you have to have something to give to be able to give to others. And I came to this awareness when I first started in construction. They bragged about tearing us up one side and down. They talked about how they only needed us from the shoulders down. It was very demeaning in those days. And I said, you know what? I'd rather build people up than tear them down. And hence I talked about build yourself and build others. How do I do that? Well, I go out and I learn from others and then teach others. They say the best way to learn is to teach. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about build yourself. That really means grow and develop yourself. So that way you can grow and develop and pour into others.
Yeah, it makes sense. And when we talk about building ourselves, whether if it's professionally, personally, or anywhere in between, whatever that is, even as a team, as an organization, how important is that discipline to do it when a lot of times when we might forget or we might not want to do it, and then being consistent with it, and then also being accountable?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And in fact, I like to tell people simple ain't easy, because it's simple to recognize what we need to do and why we need to do it. But it's not always easy, as you alluded to commit to it and actually make it happen. Schedule your time so that you know, I'm going to do this at this hour. For me, I love to listen to podcasts as a way of personal growth and development. So my windshield time when I'm driving between projects is where I gain some new knowledge. Sometimes I have to pull off the side of the road and write down those nuggets that come from those episodes so that I'll have them later. So that's what I call a deposit. You're going to deposit that into your account so that you can pay later to others. So that's what it's all about. Just taking time to read. You know that 90% of our population does not read. So if we can grow that where people are actually reading and taking time to develop themselves, thinking about what a growth path looks like. I'm not competing with you, Chris. I'm competing with myself. So if I can get better and grow better every day, if I can build myself every day, that's going to be a good track for me.
I love it. Love it. Well, I know I can relate 100% because these are things that I live by each and every day, that I have to, not only did I have to use discipline and consistency to build the foundation, but now I gotta nurture it. I gotta sustain it. So I can't just say, I can take today off, or I can take a week off. I'll be fine. No, it's like, got to be consistent. I got to keep nurturing it if that foundation is going to take care of me. And how am I going to be an example every day if I'm not doing it for myself? So what are some of the advantages when you can act, when either if it's yourself or a team or an entity, when they're doing these things that you talk about, how that reflects outward onto others, or even customers or clients that we serve?
Well, I like to say, Chris, that better teams equal better results. So if we can work together and grow and develop each other, and we can take care of our knowledge and learn and grow and recognize, hey, the world is changing. Technology is changing around us. What can we learn new that we can apply to our job, to our career, to our team, so that we can all collectively get better? Me by myself, I'm not worth a whole lot. But when I surround myself with quality people, when I get people that mentor me, when I get a team that works together towards a common goal, now you've heard that old saying, many hands make light work. So if I can have people helping me, assist me, hey, being on your podcast is another way to speak to your audience, is a way for me to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. What and when we talk about this, talk about some of the things, Brian, that you feel, again, everybody's going to be different, of course, but it doesn't mean, but what do you find is a great way, for people to build themselves up individually, team, organization, that usually, really helps to reflect favorably outward? Like, what are some things you could suggest?
So number one, you need to know yourself to grow yourself. What do I mean by that? Well, what is my learning style? How do I enjoy learning? Who should I learn from? What voices do I like to hear from? Who should I partner with? You ask yourself these questions, and then you can lay out your own plan, because it's got to be specific to you. It's got to be something that you want to do, that you desire to do. There's going to be times you have to push through and labor into this and kind of put your shoulder into it. But there's other times where if you set it up to where it speaks to you and it drives you, then that's where you're going to gain the most potential. So for me, again, I mentioned it earlier, I listen to podcasts. I also try to read a book a month. Every month I'm trying to read a book and make sure not only just to take that information and absorb it, but also write down those nuggets and points. Hey, some of these audiobooks today come with worksheets. Download those worksheets and take the time when that book is fresh on your mind to download and debrief that information. And then working together in a workshop where you got your coworkers or your peers in your industry, where you're sitting down together and you're hearing ideas from other people. I heard you saying something about it. We all learn differently and we're diverse. hey, there's things I can't do well. But when I find other people that can do that activity well, they can support me and I can support them. And so that reciprocity where we're working with each other, we recognize each other's strengths, we recognize each other's weaknesses, and then we complement each other so that we can work well together. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about building yourself and building others and the ways you can do that. Some people like to learn through video. Some people like to learn through reading. Some people like to learn through practice. So all of those are great ways to do it, but find out the way you like to do it and the ways that you get results and stick to that.
No, I mean, you made a great point, because like you could be an example, but now what are ways that people how can that really resonate with them? Is it through video? Is it through reading? Is it through practice or being around or shadowing somebody, whatever that may be? Again, it's not going to be apples to apples. We have to understand that every person is going to be different in terms of how they absorb certain things that could be helping them to better themselves personally, and then as a team, and then as an organization overall. So
yeah,
true.
Chris, I might suggest ways that have worked for me as ideas for you, but that's not necessarily the way it's going to work for you. You might take pieces of what I tell you and pieces of what someone else tells you and put those together for your puzzle. And that's where I see just, when we work together collectively, that's when we're going to get the best results.
That's so true. So true. And I think again, there's always there's more than one road to, success, whatever that means to people. It's not like, well, hey, if you don't do it this way, then you'll never, okay, maybe there might be certain aspects that might hold up, but for the most part, how one, if it's a blend of take from two different sources, then great. Or it might be a blend of three or just one. It doesn't. So again, it's not apples to apples, black and white, so to speak. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. I like to say, Chris, when I'm teaching and doing workshops, my way or the highway becomes a lonely road.
It does.
So that's what I really love about workshops is we can collectively come up with answers that I, as the facilitator, may not even have in my program. In fact, I've learned, I always want to try to make it through my little workbook in a workshop. But there's times where they're hitting the cylinders in a space that they need to hit in. And okay, we're not going to finish today. We're just going to go 3/4 through this workbook because you needed that first 3/4 and it worked good for you for the time frame we have today. So learning to do that and not being selfish. Oh, we got to make it through my little workbook. No, we got to get results where these people are engaging with each other. And if they're doing that, I don't have to hit all the points in the workbook.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would take that if you could share with us, when you build yourself, even if you're building your team, even if you're building a long-term vision for your organization to fulfill these things, all these milestones along the way, you got to have a process or a plan, a strategy, whatever, again, how it relates to one or people or an organization. What could you share with us that could really be helpful there?
So I like to engage with other industry groups. And they meet on a frequency. So some of them are meeting quarterly, some of them meeting annually, whatever that spacing is. I no longer have employees like I did 2 years ago. And I used to tease that I'm looking forward to not having employees. And today I realize, man, how beneficial those employees were to me, not only in the work that they provided and helped me with, but also just to be connected with others. So I go out of my way now to be part of organizations so I can at least have some outside influence on what I'm doing. So schedule that on some kind of frequency where you're involved and engaged with your industry and your peers and learning from people outside of your organization. And then again, going to training workshops. I heard John Maxwell say one time, if you don't invest in yourself, why would you expect your employer to invest in you? So there's times where you can get involved in something outside of your work that helps to develop you professionally and personally that you can invest in. So look for those opportunities to connect with others and to invest in yourself, to grow and develop yourself. If your company doesn't value that, you are creating value for yourself to maybe go and be employed somewhere else.
That's so true. And what you talked about earlier is reading's a great way to, do that, to get started, wrap your mind around some content. And then if it requires, hey, I'd like to find out more, I can get some additional training, tend to workshop, tend to mastermind, whatever that may be, to do a deeper dive into that area.
Absolutely. Yeah. Masterminding. What an awesome benefit that is. Gather around a table, talk about a thought or an idea, and then put your ideas and thoughts into that idea and then how to apply them in your life. That's another great way to develop and grow yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. What can you share with us when it comes to this topic? We talked about being the example, being resourceful. You shared some things about process, how we can do things that are going to help, to be that example and be a resource. What do you feel like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where, I mean, obviously I know what the answer is going to be, but if you could explain why companies, if it's going to be a high number, why companies or even individuals have to invest in building themselves to build others?
Oh, such a great question, Chris. And I just wrote an article about retaining your employees. And would you know that 94% of employees say if they're invested in, they'll stay longer with a company? Think about that ROI. Companies are struggling today to fill jobs, and then people are leaving because they're not satisfied. Well, if you could invest in them and they feel invested in, it's not always about the wages. Of course, wages are very important. We need our wages to pay for our home, our food, our car, all of those things. But being part of a group of people that we see growing together, and then recognizing that, hey, you know what? When I invest in these people, they feel invested in, they feel valued. And that's just going to have a huge ROI. Now that they're invested in, and they've learned some new things and grown their emotional intelligence, grown their foundational skills, or some people call soft skills. Now they're going to create more revenue and more opportunities for your company. And that's just going to be a compounding effect where it's got this huge ROI. Number one, they're staying, you're not having to replace them. And number two, they are growing and developing themselves. And then that in turn grows and develops your organization.
Wow, I love that. And you mentioned something there about emotional intelligence, and I think emotional intelligence is so critical in building yourself and building your team organization to build others. Talk a little bit about that from your perspective, the importance of EQ.
When I talk about EQ, I have to tell you my first experience with EQ.
Please do.
So when I first became aware of the word emotional intelligence, I had been taught, leave your emotions at home. Leave your emotions in the parking lot on these construction job sites. And so when I saw on the agenda of an event, one of these annual events I was talking about that I attend, I saw emotional intelligence. I went, oh my word, they're going to teach us to be emotional at work. What are they thinking? Chris, I had that raw emotion of disdain about emotional intelligence. I've since learned to become aware we can't leave our emotions at home. That's impossible. They're ever present.
It follows you everywhere you go.
Exactly. And so now that we learn what emotional intelligence is, it's how we control those emotions, how we use those emotions to our advantage, and not we're spouting. In construction, we like to share our voice loud and clear. And sometimes we hurt people's feelings. Yes, we have feelings. The old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is completely untrue. Words cut like a knife. So we got to be cautious of the way we're using our words, the way we're coming across to people, and then be intelligent about it. Use those emotions intelligently.
Yeah, that's so true. And what I love what you said is how we can control our emotions. Instead of reacting from anger, we can say, okay, I'm angry. It's okay. I'm not going to negate it. And I'm going to deal with it. Maybe it's a message that I have to work on something, to make that better. But I can choose to respond from a positive emotion to a situation or another person. I don't have to react from it. That's the message I got from you when you said that. Yeah,
absolutely. That proactive response instead of that reactive response.
Yeah.
In fact, I have been teaching myself, and I've started teaching others. I used to call those emotions, and I categorize them as positive and negative.
Yeah.
Today, I changed that to comfortable and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because as you alluded to, you said, I'm angry, but why am I angry? There are many reasons to be angry. It's a natural emotion.
Yeah.
Those that watch this, I don't know, do you do video with your podcast?
Yes, there is video. Oh, yeah.
So look at the guy that he's interviewing today. Could I use a little pain for gain? Absolutely, but I don't do it because it makes me uncomfortable. So these things, when I had this epiphany when I lost a loved one and I was sad. And I like to be a positive person. I like to teach being positive. But when you lose a loved one, that is not the time to be positive.
No,
So I like
it's
to talk
grieving.
about taking vacations in the uncomfortable emotions and living in the comfortable emotions. So if we can learn to do that and understand, hey, why am I experiencing this emotion? And then say, okay, well, this is timely. I should have this emotion. Now, there's times we have emotions that aren't appropriate. And so if we can question that as well, the stories we tell ourselves sometimes are untrue. So when we question ourselves, is this the right emotion? That's the start of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say that again, just like what we talked about, that's something we don't want to take for granted. We got to continue to work on that. If we're going to build ourselves continuously to build others, we have to work on that emotional intelligence individually, as a team, as an organization.
So, Chris, let's be honest with ourselves and with the listeners. This is hard work. Doing emotional intelligence, doing leadership, building yourself. There's times we're not going to be the best version of ourselves, even though maybe you're an author, maybe you're a leadership guru, maybe you're doing speaking events, but there's times where you don't model what you're teaching. I'm talking about Brian Brogen. But when I think about that, that's not the way I'm staying in that time frame. I might, slip up and get out of cadence, but I need to step it back up, get back in cadence, and follow what I'm teaching others and what I'm learning from others.
Yeah. Wow. This is powerful stuff. I love what you've been sharing here today. And as I know we're at the end of the time, near the end of the course of the show, I want to spend the next few minutes just letting people get to know you, Brian, just a little bit about, a little bit more than just the bio and, where can they find you? What are you up to? And anything that you'd like to provide or share with the audience.
Oh, Chris, thanks for allowing me to introduce myself again to this audience, but in a little more personal way. I tell people I barely graduated high school. That's a true story. In fact, I had to go do some community service hours to get that last half hour credit to get through high school. I stumbled upon a very rewarding career in construction. My teachers threatened me with digging ditches because of the way I didn't excel in school. And then I did, lo and behold, start digging ditches. I was a laborer. I worked my way up to become a journeyman and then on and on, project manager, until finally I was the executive of a field operations of a construction company. And I realized then I want to go back into these high schools and tell students about why education is important and how to apply it. My teachers did not apply what they were teaching us to the real world. I've come to understand most of them are career educators. They came through elementary, middle, high school, college, and they went back to education. That's great. They give their lives to that, but they don't have that real world experience. And that's where we come in as society, go back into the high schools and tie this education to real
life experience with how we make a living.
Exactly. I asked my pre-algebra teacher, why am I going to need pre-algebra to buy a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk? She did not have an answer for me. But what I will tell you, she should have asked me is, well, do you plan to be a purchaser for a grocery store? Because if you do, maybe you don't need this. But when I rolled out that first set of drawings and saw geometry and areas and square footages and went, oh boy, this is where this applies. When I had to write my first bid letter and realized I struggle with English, I better start learning some of this stuff to present myself better and get better opportunities. So that's what I've done the last 10 years in the high schools, and I've gotten great results from it. In fact, that's where I discovered I like building people as much as I like building buildings. And that's why I've launched this training and consulting business.
So, Brian, in the last 30 seconds, what is the best way they can reach you in terms of email, website, phone number, whatever you feel like you'd like to share?
We'll give it all to you. So my phone number to start with is 863-800-9658. I picked that phone number out because I thought it would be easy. And today people tell me they get a call from an 800 number and they hang up. So maybe it wasn't as smart as I thought it was. But that's my phone number. My email is Brian, BRIAN, B @buildcs.net. And then reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Brian Brogen on there. So if you find me on there, that'd be great. And I love to work there daily. I share leadership nuggets and like to engage there daily.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us here today.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, Chris, for having me.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. We are committed each and every week in bringing in subject matter experts like Brian Brogen in to share their words of wisdom and insights to help elevate your business and level of influence to the next level. Till then, everybody, we want to wish you a great rest of your week, and we will see you next week. Take care.